best.
That's true. Yeah,
and I'm in New Jersey, and
the real perfect solution would be to take this show on the road.
yeah.
Oh well.
Piping Jim's traveling Christmas show.
Yeah,
Or something like that.
someday, man, someday. Before we dive into the tunes, just curious, like how things are going with you. And I think maybe one way to dive into that, Andrew, is that you're in the midst of a tune a day. Is it for a year or is it 100 days that you're going for?
Well, tune a day for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I started on my birthday at the end of August. Figured I'd do it for 1 year that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be near 100 days actually. I think tomorrow is day 100.
Oh, tomorrow already.
Yeah, which is exciting.
And that's been fun in general anyway, but you've started hitting some holiday tunes just barely, and so that's been cool.
Yeah, so so this year Advent lines up with December 1st. So the first Sunday Advent was on December 1st. And so I started with O Come Emmanuel.
Which was very cool. Well done. Bravo.
Thank you. And actually taken from your inspiration on the A minor version.
Well, shucks.
And I was using my Frankenpipes, as I call them, which is they're a set of Dunbars that I got a couple years ago. And I got them, they were a plastic set. They were cheap. They came from Canada, so it was even cheaper. And I got another set of pipes last year that I'm eventually going to give to a student. So I had a couple of spare drone parts hanging around, and I decided I'll make a set with a baritone drone.
Yeah.
So instead of having two tenors, I have the bass in A, and the tenor in A, and then the baritone to E, which gives this. It's an interesting sound. It's almost machine-like.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely takes some getting used to, especially on the highland pipes. I think on the small pipes, having the baritone drums a little bit easier on the ears, but on the highland pipes, it's definitely something different.
Mm.
And so yeah, you could play tunes in A minor, A major, B minor, G, and they all work pretty well. Tunes in D, not so much, because the E and the D don't quite get along. As well. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun kind of figuring out what tune to play each day. Sometimes I have like I'm doing it like if there's a significant to the date, like I'll do a tune that's significant for that. So like for instance, like November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday. So I'd play the Marine Sim, kind of stuff like that. Now with Christmas coming along, I kind of have like yesterday I played Jolly Old St. Nicholas because it was St. Nicholas Day. And kind of going with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm imagining that for me at least, it would come up maybe like 6 days in. I'd start going, oh boy, I need a way to think of more tunes. And so any kind of like holidays and stuff like that would really be helpful to like give you a clue.
Yeah, Christmas, December and March are going to be two kind of months that I'm saving all the Irish tunes for March for St. Patrick's Day. And so I started with a note on my phone, and I just wrote each month and then the day. And then at the end of the day, I just put in what tune I played. So I have a list going so I don't do any repeats, because I'm sure that will.
Oh, that's smart.
Bound to happen.
Yeah. And somebody on the internet would notice too. They'd be like, "Hey, wait a second."
Yeah, yeah. And now I'm up against the conundrum, no pun intended, of like if I play a tune in different time signatures or different expressions, does it count as two different tunes?
Does that count?
So like, for instance, like. The P. Rockadonald do, right? That 6/8 march.
Love that one.
So you can play it as a jig real easily, right? You just round it out and add a few more notes. You have it as a jig. But then you can also play it as a reel, and they play it as a reel pretty frequently in Cape Breton. And so it's like, if I play it as a march, jig, and a reel, is that three separate tunes or is it one tune? So I think when I get to that day that I play that tune, I think I might just play all three at one.
I especially like that one where it's got Pibrook in the title, and then but it can be played as a march jiggle reel, and like
yeah, and
what a
the
combo.
original Kilmore Black Donald's March is. I mean, you can, if you were to listen to that and then live it in the March version, you can see the connection. I mean, it's the same melody, just taken into a different idiom. I sound like Bob Worrell now.
Well, speaking of your Frankenstein pipes, it was funny that came up in conversation just a week or two ago with a friend, and he sent me this link to another conversation. Are you familiar with Cassandra? I'm not sure how to say her last name, honestly. Balasso Barden, I think. She plays Gaita. And she's often at like, I think she did some presentations at like the Piper's Gathering and stuff like that.
I think I've definitely heard the name.
Yeah.
I feel like she's been mentioned on Gary West's podcast.
Oh, I'm sure yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, she did like an interview with another musician. I'm not familiar with the other musician, but they were talking about like old instruments like that you'd find in museums. And the term Frankenstein instrument came up in the conversation a couple of times. And I thought it was interesting. The way they were talking about it was like something like they used a few fun phrases. They talked about rejiggering. They talked about how like musicians and like luthiers, people who work on the instruments and stuff like that, of course would rejigger their instruments, for fun, but also like maybe the popularity of certain tunes like comes in and out of vogue, and you need your instrument to reach just a little further one direction or to have a half step in some odd place in order to play that tune. Things like that'll happen, and they talk about like sort of like the hip, if you will, musicians who are trying these new things with the instrument might not realize what's happening, but like who knows how many decades later the weird thing that they're doing with their instrument might be just an assumed part of the instrument now,
It kind of reminds me of a certain bagpiper that I know lives in Utah. Crazy stuff with
I was about to say the same thing about
high range chanters and also our friend Jeremy with his high B tunes and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love thinking about that. Like I love imagining with Jeremy, you brought up the perfect example. I love imagining that like, what if 100, 200 years ago or 100, 200 years from now, I'm here in high B's in the competition circle. Like it's so standard, that it's infiltrated that far, and the memory of when this wasn't a thing is lost. It's just like, oh, of course bagpipes do that. You know what I mean? And with your baritone drone, like, how far away are we from that becoming the standard? Like all makers, of course, it's like, of course, why would you have two tenors? That doesn't make sense. Here's your baritone,
I've never really liked having two tenors.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it sounds great. Like when your pipes are like singing and they're nice in tune and yeah, there is a fullness to it. But like having just a bass and a tenor is also quite nice, because sometimes I feel like my chanter is a little bit on the quieter side. So it's like, it's not overpowering with drones, but having that baritone option is, it definitely adds to it. And if you can make it that you can tune it to E and D, then you have even more options, because you can play out the tunes in D that we play a fair amount in D, and not have that clash with the E drone,
right?
But I'm sure. Well, like the Brian, have you heard of the Brian Baru pipes?
Yeah. I've never tried them, but I've seen some videos of people playing them, yeah.
So they have a kind of a similar setup where they have bass drone in A or B flat, baritone in E, and tenor in A. But then they have a keyed chanter, so that they kind of are doing what you're doing, the extended range. But they actually, with the keys, they can go a little bit further down, and I think they can go down to what we would consider highland E or low E, and then up to maybe like a high B or high C. So they play a lot of tunes that are similar to. They do a lot of like hymns and stuff, because a lot of them are connected with like the Orange Order in Northern Ireland. But they also will play like kind of standard pipe band tunes, but they'll play it down a fifth, I guess. So they'll play it in E instead of in A.
Mm-hmm.
and it like you hear it and you're like, well, it makes it sound so much lower, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's such a different sound, and it's like I've always wanted to do something where like we do like a highland bagpipe, Brian Boru bagpipe composite pipe band, because then
Oh yeah, you have some fun harmonies
like
and stuff
since
going on.
they're tuned to be flat,
Mm-hmm.
and we could easily tune to be flat with our instruments. You just have that much more room for cool extra harmonies that you can do
Yeah.
with the drone, and then also with the extended range. And I think it would be really cool. And
Yeah.
my goal is eventually to have a rule in one of the I want to have a rule in one of the association rule books named after me.
Yeah.
Like you have to play Highland bagpipes, or like
Yeah.
there should be like the we've always joked about that in Catamount when I was there. We like we want there to be the Catamount, and it's something that we did that like, okay, you can't do that anymore.
Right. Something, and so maybe beyond just like wearing a really silly hat, that then they're like, okay, it's Glengarry's only from now on. If you show up with an alternative instrument, that's much bigger.
Yeah.
They'll call it like the O'Sullivan exception, or the O'Sullivan injunction, or something like that. Well, speaking of your baritone drone setup, I was trying to remember, did any of the tracks that you recorded have that baritone in it? Balulami did not.
Not on the Highland pipes, no.
But you did send I Saw Three Ships. That was on your small pipes, right?
That was on my small pipes in A, and
We could.
so I got two sets of small pipes going right now. I got the one in A and then the one in C.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, should we hop to, maybe that's a good transition, talking about having different drones set up for something other than just the double tonic. Would that make sense?
Yeah, well, actually, with that set, I Saw Three Ships, and then the other one, Mira and Anolik, they're both tunes in D. So I just was playing the bass and the tenor.
Oh, it's a whole set. Sorry, I was looking up and down the tracks. I was like, where's Mira and Anolik? Oh, there we go. I got you.
They're right together.
Oh yeah. Well, sure. I mean, why not? Let's tell me about that. Tell me about that set. Maybe start by telling me about the music, and then tell me more about the instruments.
I Saw Three Ships is I'd say pretty classic Christmas carol.
Absolutely.
At least in my mind, it's a pretty classic one. And just doing some quick Wikipedia.
Yep, I hear you there.
It could have a connection to Good King Wenceslas, like the actual king himself,
Oh, interesting.
and which is kind of neat. But there's an idea that the ships were like a metaphor for the three wise men,
Oh.
making coming into Bethlehem, and then there's another idea that I guess they brought there were relics that were brought. There were the relics of the wise men
Mm.
that were brought to Cologne in France in the 12th century, and apparently that this tune is talking about the ships bringing the relics
Oh,
as well. So
really?
it's an old tune. I think it comes from I want to say like 1500s.
Mm.
But it's one of those like classic English carols. The
Yeah.
English do the English do pretty well with the carols, and it's in 6/8, so it leads itself to playing as a jig pretty easily.
Which that's how you played it in this recording, right?
That's how I played it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this piper from Canada by the name of Rob Crabtree, and he put out an album called "The Piper's Christmas," and I got that when I was a kid. I think I was freshman year of high school, maybe, or eighth grade, some around that time. And so, yeah, I listened to it a bunch, and there's just some really great arrangements of tunes on there, and then tunes that you don't hear, like, Christmas tunes that you don't hear too terribly often at all. And so I saw Through Ships was one of them, and he does like a kind of a cool second part, which I've picked up. So I play that. And then the second tune is actually one that I wrote, Mirren and Nolik.
It blends in so well, man. Like those two go together really nicely.
Thank you. And so Mira it's an Irish word for can mean a couple of things, but in the dictionary it says quickness, rapidity, spiritedness, madness, frenzy. To be in a mad frenzy, or things like that. So, kind of the frenzy of Christmas is kind of what I was going for.
Oh yeah,
and I think I wrote it on. It was either like the 22nd or 23rd of December
when the frenzy is at the very
like
height.
when you're at like the height, like you're just like everything's moving around.
Yeah,
and I was having a little bit of a trouble putting a name on it, and has a very Irish sound to it, and it's like I was hearing like hard shoe Irish dancing to it. So
yeah,
that's
see what
why
you mean.
I put the name in Irish. And so yeah, Mirren and Nolik, and I played those two. I made like a small video a couple of years ago, just those two tunes together, and I sent it over to my band manager, and we put it on our band's page, and somebody on Instagram commented, "You suck."
Oh
and,
my goodness!
You shouldn't play those tunes. And I'm like, well, considering I wrote the second one,
why are people so mean on the internet, Andrew?
I don't know, but like,
yeah,
if you're gonna put stuff on the internet, you got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
But I was just like, come on, thanks for telling me that I should play tunes that are easier, and considering I wrote one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a fun thing.
Oh man.
But we figure you just pay them no heed, and they'll go away.
Yeah. Well, that's just silly. This is really lovely. I was curious about the arrangement of I Saw Three Ships in here too, because I really like I don't know, would you call them runs? Are they arpeggios? I don't really know what the musical term is for it, but it's cool. I like that arrangement a lot.
I think they're runs. And I do that like kind of the second time through.
Yeah.
And it's just
it fits so nicely. I love that.
How many notes can we fit in a
right? Yeah.
in a short period on the scale?
Yeah. It's funny too that like I Saw Three Ships is one of those Christmas tunes that I've been hearing since I was a kid, and I don't remember having any particular feelings about it either way when I was younger. In my older years now, it's become one of my very favorites, especially since I heard there's a version of it on the Bare Naked Ladies holiday album called
Oh,
Bare
I
Naked for the
love that album.
Holidays. Yeah. Oh, I
I
love that
love
album
that
too.
album.
One of my very favorites. And that's probably my favorite track from the album, if I had to choose, because I like the whole album for sure. But I do really like the one that opens with the mandolin, you know? So especially after
Yeah.
having heard it there, I'm like, man, this is like one of my very top Christmas songs. Love this one. But I never understood it. Doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, three ships. I don't know. Whatever. You know, love the music though.
My favorite track on that album is I think it's God Rest From Your Gentlemen and We Three Kings
Yeah.
with Sarah McLachlan joining them on there.
Yes.
And there's just some really nice harmonies on the chorus of We Three Kings.
Oh yeah, when they da, 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 da.
And I
Yeah.
normally end up singing that at Mass on Epiphany
Oh,
when we
very
do We
cool.
Three Kings. So it's
Yeah.
like there's definitely some interesting musical choices that I make when before
Yeah.
in the Christmas season at church.
My kids go nuts for their opening track on that album, the Jingle Bells one. You know, it opens with that lovely piano. It's all swirling, and then suddenly just goes nuts, like into this crazy polka. And they're all just jumping around the kitchen, laughing and singing along.
Yeah, it's a fun album. It's I try to listen to it every year. There's another fun story with I Saw Three Ships. So
Yeah.
the Chieftains, when they were around, they put out an album with Trace Adkins, the country singer, called The King's Gift, and it's a Christmas album.
Oh, really?
And yeah,
I'm gonna have to look this up.
So like Trace's voice just goes well with all the instrumentation on the Chieftains. It's just he's got that nice kind of deep American voice, and it goes well with uilleann pipes and fiddle and harp and all that. And they did a version of I Saw Three Ships, and it started out with Ailith McCormick, I think is she played.
Oh, yep, I see it here. Actually, I was just looking up the album to make sure I'd be able to listen to it later, and I see her listed. Yeah.
Yeah, she played harp and also sings in Gaelic. So she starts off singing very kind of slowly I Saw Three Ships in Gaelic, which is Hunnic me tree lawn, Hunnic me tree lawn, or something on I'm not remembering exactly the words, but
whatever you say, Andrew, I will believe you.
So long is ship, like when the tune Kyle Gillies of Portin' Along. Portin' Along is Port of the Ships, but the Gaelic word for moose is lon, so it's Lon without the G. And when I was living in New Hampshire a couple of years ago, one of my pastimes was I'd go out moosing, so I'd go out looking for moose.
I did not know that was a thing.
And you got to go at the right time, and so I was kind of out on the New Hampshire Maine border, and it's October, it's about 5:00 or so. We're kind of right in the middle of the rut. I'm in the middle of Grafton Notch State Park, which there's no cell service, and I'm like, well, I figured I'd take Route 2 out. I'd hit Bethel, Maine, and then I'd come loop back around. And I see a car coming by me in the other direction, and he flashes the high beams at me, which in most places that aren't full of wildlife, it's the universal sign for there's a cop ahead, slow down.
Yep.
But in the woods, it means there's a big animal ahead, slow down. And there were 3 bull moose.
Whoa, 3 of them.
Just 3, yeah. So there was definitely 2 with antlers, and then I think there was a younger bull that didn't have his antlers yet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm good. I saw my moose. I was up there for a year at this point, almost a year. I didn't see any moose. I was like, I saw my moose. I'm good. I'm going to turn around now because I do not want to get into a moose collision. And, in the middle of the Maine woods with no cell service, and it's getting dark and all that. So I turn around and I'm thinking to myself, and I kind of thought to myself again, like, Hunnic me tree long. And then, well, that's very close to Hunnic me tree long. And then I just started singing about I saw 3 moose come walking.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my fun story with that tune. That wasn't related to Christmas at all.
No, that's excellent though.
Related to the tune.
I'd love to imagine too that like, don't tell me if this isn't the case, because I just want this to be the truth, that there is a rarely seen but just absolutely bitter and boiling rivalry between birders and moosers. And if you ever come across a birder, out there looking for his, the rare chickadee or whatever it is they're looking for, but you're out there looking for a moose, like you guys just glare at each other.
Probably not,
Dang it.
because there's. I think it's easier to find the birds sometimes than it is to find the moose.
That would fuel the
Just 'cause-
rivalry, though. You see, the moosers would be like, "Oh, those birders have it so easy, and they get all the attention."
Also,
Well,
too, a bird isn't going to necessarily kill you if you run into it
right, not necessarily, right?
in your car. But if you run into a moose with your car, that won't be a good day.
Right. We had a student in our pipe band a few years ago who was from Scotland, and I've seen something kind of like this happen a couple times. I wonder if it's just that when a person moves away from home, it makes them miss home. But we've had a couple of times people who were from Scotland who had moved here to the U.S., and it's like by having moved away made them want to either go back to or start learning the pipes. And that was the case with this guy, and he showed up for a little while and learned some with us. Had a really thick accent, and we were talking about animals at some point. I think it might have been elk season here or something like that. And we were just clarifying like, oh, an elk is somewhere between a deer and a moose, basically. And then he laughed and was like, in his thick Scottish accent, was like, a moose with antlers or a moose with whiskers? Which I'd never had to make that distinction before. I was like, oh, I had no idea that was a thing, but it makes sense.
Well, it's funny you were talking about elk season, because in Europe, what we know as moose are actually called elk.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize that either.
So elk comes from the Latin. So if you were to look at like a regular moose's like Latin name, like the genus and species, it's Alcis, or Alcus, depending on your Latin pronunciation. ALCES, and then repeated. And so like in Sweden and Norway and other places where they have moose, they call them elk. And so I guess when the Europeans came to North America, they encountered moose first. No, they encountered elk first, I would imagine. So they got the name elk. And then moose is from the Algonquin, one of the Algonquin languages.
I didn't know that either. Wow.
And I think it means something to the fact of like thing that chews on bark or something of that nature. It's something related to their diet of eating off of the trees. I'm sure Jeremy can.
Yeah, I bet.
Give the correction on that one. But yeah, so there is a confusion between moose and elk, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and they are two different animals.
Well, that probably made it even more confusing for this guy when we were trying to explain. I don't know.
Yeah, and there were moose in Scotland up until like the 10 or 1100s, and then I think they ended up getting killed off or something or whatnot. But this has turned into a wildlife podcast.
No, this is perfect though, because I've got a tune that I was going to share with you that has to do with donkeys and oxen. So that's how we'll tie it together. There's this one that I wanted to pull that I just like the sound of, that I don't speak French, but the title that I've seen around for it is usually in French, and I'm going to try it. Entre le boeuf. I always think of Shia LaBeouf. Et l'âne gris. Something like between the ox and the gray donkey. Something like that. And, I did some Wikipedia on this one as well. And from what I could tell, it's sometimes also just referred to as the sleep of baby Jesus, which makes sense because that's kind of like a repeated part of the lyrics. But it's a Christmas carol that comes out of France. Some of the sources I found said that it probably came out of the 16th century, but some were saying maybe the 13th century. And I tend to get even more excited based on how old a tune is. So my headcanon is going to be 13th century.
We can deal with that.
Yeah. And so I'm sure that this is like in reference to like the typical manger scene, with animals around. And it's kind of like the lyrical theme of this song is like, I found one version of the lyrics translated into English. And this version is like 4 verses and then kind of a conclusion. And each verse opens with a line about Jesus being between two things. And so the opening one is between the ox and the gray donkey. The next one is between the two arms of Mary. The next one is between the roses and the lilies. And then the next one is amidst the gentle shepherds. And then the second line of each verse is this repeated sleeps, sleeps, sleeps. And then we get this little variation of the little son, the fruit of life, the little son again, and then Jesus who smiles. And then like the conclusion one is like it pulls in the name Emmanuel. And then like the conclusion of each verse actually matches. It's all just about angels and seraphim flying around. That's what this translation has, at least. So between the ox and the gray donkey, or the sleep of little Jesus, one or the other. But it's got this thing that I feel like so many old French tunes have this. This is me ignorantly trying to point at something that I feel like is a thing, where it's like it's very modal or even minor sounding. And so, you know, like it's like this lullaby. Reading the lyrics, I'd be like, oh, it's like a little lullaby. It's going to sound like sweet and gentle, which because of my cultural place where I live, you know, in terms of time and geography, I would assume that's going to mean a very major sounding, pretty simple little melody, you know, maybe something pentatonic or something like that, you know, that's like a nursery rhyme. But instead, it's like if I'd heard just the music with no lyrics, I'd be like, "Whoa, dark, creepy, terrifying," you know, in a very cool way. So I always think that's kind of fun. I did actually try. I tried Googling like, why do old French songs sound like that? And I wasn't getting any good answers. But maybe there's a better way to do research on that. But there's an artist who's got work on Bandcamp and YouTube and stuff called Carlo Man. But I always think Carol Man because they do a lot of Christmas carols, and they have a version of this with lyrics. So maybe I'll play a little sampling of that too, so we can get a feel for what it sounds like with lyrics too. I did this one on smallpipes. This was my set of Walsh AD 2000 smallpipes. But like really prominent in the recording is the double bass, the contrabass, the A1 bass that Benjamin Elzerman made. It's over 5 feet long, but it curls around enough that it's manageable. And he printed it. He made the reed for it. Benjamin's very good at everything that they're doing. Not only that, one night I was here in my office and I was like, I was trying to figure out how I was going to cut the bag to add an additional stock. Cause basically like, imagine my small pipe bag, right? I already have my 4 drones that Walsh made sticking out, and I want to get this super low bass into my instrument somehow. So I was trying to figure out like, am I going to cut an additional hole? And if I do, where do I put it? You know, do I want this big drone hanging over my leg or sticking over my shoulder or what? And Benjamin was on Facebook Messenger and was just like, "Oh, well, what are the dimensions of your current stock?" You know, because I had like a common stock for those 4 drones that I already had. Mm-hmm. I grabbed some calipers off my shelf and I was like, "Oh, it's about this." And Benjamin's like, "Oh, okay." And like 2 minutes later, Benjamin had sent me a file, like a printable CAD file, for a common stock that had like an additional little barrel sticking off the side that I could stick this super low bass into.
Oh, nice.
So very good at designing, and apparently also like really quick too, because I mean I was blown away. Like that very day I was already printing it, and that's what I've got set up now, which is really convenient and so much fun. Oh, actually, one other thing I should mention about this tune, Andrew, is that Jeremiah, oh man, something like, wait, what is,
McLean.
yeah, McLean. I was gonna say McLean, and then I was like, wait, that's not right. Yeah, Jeremiah McLean and Timothy Cummings, on their Wind in the Reeds album, they have a version of this. Oh yeah, one of my very favorite albums ever. Not even just like specifying bagpipes or recording, just like so excellent. So I think we should pull a sampling of that in here too, because I was following Timothy Cummings' arrangement for my recording on this too. But they have a version of this that they go from this tune on accordion and small pipes. Maybe they're border pipes. But they go from that into a polka that it's just, man, it's such a great track. On this, he suggested that this tune might be coming from Breton too. What do you know anything about that, Andrew? Have
you? Not specifically, but if it's in the minor,
yeah,
key,
it is.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
a lot of Breton music is minor, minor key or minor mode, which is fun for sure. And they do a whole, like the Bagades do a whole thing where, like they'll have two sets of pipes running, or at least two sets of drones running, and so they'll have like so in the Bagade you have like your standard pipe section, which is just highland pipes, and then you have your bombard section, and then you have your what they call the battery, which is like it's the drum section, and then like so it's snare drums, and then it's like every other type of percussion you can think of.
I love that.
It's like just like, you know, go to like a school band director's office and just find any type of drum that you can find, and
that can all be part of the battery.
Yeah, if you can bang it, you can play it basically. Like, you know,
I love that. I love using that name for it too. The battery. That's
the battery. Yeah,
that's the word that they use in at least some versions of Spanish for drums as well. And I never really put it together, but hearing it in this context, I go, oh yeah, because you're like battering this stuff. It's like the stuff you hit. I love that.
Well, it also do like, you know, for me, when I hear like the battery, I think of like, a group of artillery.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then so you have that, and then you have like the bombards. So there's just a lot of like explosiveness going on
Yeah.
with the battery and
Battery and the
bombarding
bombards, yeah.
and but they do so a lot of Badads will have like either two sets of pipes going or two sets of drones going,
Mm.
where it's like you would have your standard Highland pipe, two tenors in A and bass in A, well, B flat,
Yeah.
but Highland A. And then they have what they call the dough drones, and that's tuned to what we would call B,
Mm.
but in reality is C.
Yeah.
So they're tuned to the minor note, the minor B there,
Mm.
and it gives it a totally different feel, like you were doing with "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel" a couple of years ago, like playing it down in A minor. It hits like our drone set up differently than when you play it in B in B minor. So it's and hearing tunes like we did the gig with the Chieftains, my old band, and then with Catamount we did. So I've done that gig with the Chieftains a couple times now, and we play what they call the St. Patrick's Andro. It's this great little tune and this Andro tune in B, like a lot of them are, and we were just playing them on regular Highland pipes, and it sounds great and all that. But then I was listening to a recording of Bagad New York playing that tune on their dough drones.
Yeah.
And it totally changes it. It gives it just a totally different feel when the drones are really connecting with the tonal note of the tune.
No, that makes
But
sense. Yeah.
And that song, between the
Ox in the
and
ass or
donkey,
something like that. Yeah.
even with its very like minor sound to it, it feels very appropriate for Advent, because Advent is it's a season of like getting ready, but then it's also like, you would appreciate this because you're into skeletons and whatnot, but it's like it's like getting ready for like the second coming and death, and if you're gonna go up or down kind of thing. So
yeah, I hadn't thought of that angle before. Yeah.
it's so like a lot of the like the Advent tunes are just musically a little bit on the darker side, and obviously the more proper Christmas tunes are obviously more the major, like "O Come, O Come," or "O Come, All Ye Faithful," and
yeah.
"Angels We Have Heard on High," and all that good stuff.
That's interesting. It's a distinction that I haven't even been aware of until recent years. Like for my like up until now, for the most part, I've just been like, well, holiday music is holiday music. And then it was looking through Timothy Cummings' collection of holiday music and realizing like, oh, he has them separated into the Advent tunes and the Epiphany tunes and stuff like that. I'm like, is this part of a liturgical calendar? Like, I don't really have a strong reference for what these different categories are, and so why the flavor would be different,
I'll give it at least for like the Catholic perspective. So our liturgical year starts with the first Sunday of Advent, which for us was last Sunday.
So that's beginning of December, right?
Beginning of December or end of November.
Gotcha.
It's 4 Sundays before Christmas. So we have Advent, which is a penitential season. So it's it's similar to Lent, but nowadays, like, we don't have like the big as much of like the fasting, or you can you don't have to like give up meat or whatnot.
Thank goodness, am I right? Born at the right time.
Yeah, in years, in days of yore, you'd kind of give up meat for the time being, and then you'd have like the big feast at Christmas. So it's like the bigger the fast, the better the feast, kind of thing.
Nice.
And so you'd go from Advent into Christmas, which is now 12 days, which is where we get the 12 days of Christmas from. Which goes from December 25th to January 6th, which is the Epiphany, which is where the kings, the 3 wise men, came. And then you would go into, well, in the old days, Christmas used to be a 40-day season, much like Easter. So it would actually go until February 2nd, which is a feast called Candlemas or Candlemas. And then you get into ordinary time for a little bit, and then Lent comes around. and that's the 40 days of Lent, which is about 6 weeks, and then Easter,
Mm.
and then you have the 50 days of Easter and Pentecost, and then it's back into ordinary time until
You cycle
December.
back in.
So like also like if you would see like at a Catholic mass throughout the different times of the year, the priests wear different colored vestments based on the season. So like right now, where Advent is a purple season. So they wear purple vestments, except for on the third Sunday they wear rose-colored vestments. So like a pink color. It's supposed to like recognize that it's like the penitential season is almost over, and we're getting ready for the big feast. So the third Sunday of Advent is known as Gaudete Sunday, or like Rejoicing Sunday.
Oh yeah.
And then Christmas is either red or white, mostly white vestments, and then ordinary time is green, and then on certain like big feast days you'll have red. So like Pentecost or Christ the King, or kind of the bigger feast days that maybe don't have a full season, you'd have red vestments. And then it's and Holy Week is their red vestments as well. So from Palm Sunday to Easter Saturday or Holy Saturday, which is the Saturday before Easter, you would have red vestments and then into the white for Easter. And there's like a fun little meme that goes around every year or every so often. It's called the liturgical colander. So it's just a strainer, or as we would call it in my family, a schoolabast, or a schoolabasta, which is a Sicilian word for colander. And then it's like broken up into like sections, like a pie chart, but with the different colors based on
the liturgical colander. That's clever.
And then there's always a meme that goes around Advent and around not so much Lent, because Lent also has I think it's the fourth Sunday of Lent is known as Laudate Sunday, which I don't exactly know the Latin for, but it's the same idea as Gaudete Sunday, where it's like we're kind of towards the end. And they also wear the rose-colored vestments, and there's the joke that normally comes around in Advent, like, you know, the parishioner says to the priest, "Oh, I like your pink vestments, Father." And it's like, they're not pink, they're rose, because Jesus rose from the dead. And you know, it's just kind of fun church humor, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and when you mentioned it, it did make me wonder too. Like, I might be like on a like hyper lookout, looking for connections here. But there's one of the verses of that tune that between the ox and the ass was it opened with, "Between the roses and the lilies, sleep, sleep, sleeps." And I was like, oh, I wonder, you know, maybe rose colored at the end of one thing and then lily white colored at the beginning of the next, maybe, or something like that. But maybe that's more than the whatever the lyrics had in mind.
Perhaps. I mean, like, I know like lilies are associated with Easter, so maybe it's for that as well. But I'm not too terribly sure. But I do know that or my uncle told me, he's a Franciscan priest, that the ox and the ass in the manger scene actually represent the Jewish and Muslim people. Because the manger, as we know it, was I think it was St. Francis that kind of came up with the idea of it originally.
It being full of animals and coming from St. Francis seems to make sense. he was the bird talker guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, and because if you look, there's in the New Testament, there's two infancy narratives. There's one in Matthew and one in Luke, and if you look at them both, they're different. Like there is no manger in Matthew's gospel, but in Luke's, like, so like we had to take like best of both and put them together. Like the Magi didn't come, and I'm pretty sure I don't think they came in Luke's gospel, but they did in Matthew's gospel. Right. And then, you know, because like they weren't like the Holy Family wasn't like hanging out in the manger for 12 days, you know. Like they eventually made it to a house. We've kind of combined both the stories. That's kind of what we think of as like the Christmas story, you know, with like the manger and the star, and the king, the three kings or the magi, and so kind of a combination of both.
Yeah, a fun mashup.
Merged together.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, now I'm trying to think, like what's our smooth transition to like the next tune, and I wonder if it's toward Lammy.
I was actually thinking the same thing.
Oh, that's a sign. That's a sign that that's the way to go. Just speaking of
mainly
manger
just
scenes and all that kind of stuff, babies sleeping.
as I found a little blurb from it, from Tim Cummings's either book or website, because he has the score for that on there.
Yeah.
So it's a old lullaby, an old Scottish tune from the 16th or 17th century, and Baloo or Baloo, I'm not sure on the proper Scots pronunciation, is like hush, kind of what you would say to a baby, and then Lammy is like little lamb. So we're getting that whole, lamb metaphor.
Yeah.
And
everybody gets to be animals in the Christmas scene. We all get to be an animal in one way or another.
I originally heard this tune from an album that my father had called A Scottish Christmas. And Eric Rigler was the piper on it, so he played highland pipes, small pipes, and uilleann pipes. Bonnie Rideout was the fiddler on it, and then there was Maggie Sansone, who I think either played harp or dulcimer, and then Al Petaway, who played guitar and or mandolin, plucked stringed instruments. And so this was I think that this was a track all on its own, and it Eric Rigler played it on the uilleann pipes, and it just has a really cool sound on the uilleann pipes, as the uilleann pipes tend to do that with tunes. And so I don't have a set of uilleann pipes, which is probably a good thing for now. But I do kind of I like mimicking the uilleann pipes if I can.
Yeah.
So when I played it, I decided to play it on highland pipes. My highland pipes kind of have more of a uilleann pipe sound than my small pipes, especially on like airs and such. And you can do some really good vibrato and get slides, natural notes a lot easier than on the small pipes. So I did it that way, and I played through it pretty much played through it straight the first time through, and then the second time through added some vibrato on the held or the longer notes.
Yeah.
It's just been one of those tunes that I've heard, I don't know, since fourth grade. So that was year 2000.
Yeah.
And I was playing it a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, I actually played it on the pipes, and, I'm getting to a point now, and I'm sure you're like this as well, where if you go back to, because there were quite a few albums that I listened to either before I started playing, or when I was early on in my piping journey.
Yeah.
And going back and listening to an album that was top of the CD stack.
Yeah.
Now it's either I know all these tunes, or I could at least I could play some of these tunes.
I could work them on. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's kind of cool going back and or at least being able to recognize tunes that you didn't know, and it just
Yes,
totally
for sure.
changes the experience of listening to the album. So
Yeah.
with this one, and then the other one that I did was both from that album. So it's it's kind of got a neat place. There's just a lot of obscure Christmas tunes that
Mm-hmm.
maybe aren't terribly obscure, but they like
Obscure to me.
they're not.
That's something.
You don't hear them on the radio. Put it
Right.
yeah, put it that way. Like, and I'm sure the people that work retail would enjoy
Would
hearing
love some
these
variety.
every so often
Yeah.
instead of Mariah Carey or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and we've mentioned it a few times, and of course, and I mean, Tim came on the show a Christmas or two ago too to talk about that collection. But that collection that Timothy Cummings put together of a lot of Christmas-tide music, tons of it. I forget how many tunes are in that collection now, but it's a lot, and there's a lot in there that one would probably recognize, and so much that, at least for me, was new to me, and every one of them delightful, like really fun melodies. So a little plug for Tim's book. I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. But with Balu Lamy and with that version of I Saw Three Ships that you did, that you mentioned you also had listened to a lot when you were younger, are these tunes that are like so embedded in your mind that like once you decided to do them on the pipes, they're just coming out of your fingers no problem? Or were you looking for sheet music to figure out how to do these ones?
I think Balu Lamy came pretty much by ear. I know when I was making this recording, I did look up sheet music for it just to make sure that it was playable on the pipes. Like I was playing the full range of the tune.
Yeah.
Because I know like there's definitely there's some tunes that like, oh, you can do the A part on the pipes, but you can't do the B part. Because it goes wildly out of the range, or like you can kind of do it, but you have to fudge it a little bit.
Kind of fold the tune in. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make sure, like, because as I said, I heard it on Highland pipes, but I've never heard it on Highland pipes or Scottish pipes, Highland or small pipes. And so I just wanted to make sure, and then that's where I came up with Tim's collection. And then I think I Saw Three Ships, I think we played it like the school band, 7th grade or something.
Yeah.
And I had a piano book of something, like a Christmas piano book type thing. And it was in there, but I don't remember what key it was in, or if it was in the same key. So I remember playing it a little bit, on a non-bagpipe instrument. And I don't remember when I started playing on pipes. It might have been like my first or second year playing. I think I got a Christmas book, but Christmas pipe tune book type thing.
Yeah.
And but I do remember hearing it again. I was somewhere in high school, and I heard it sung by Nat King Cole.
Oh.
And he has a really great Christmas album. And
yes.
I love his voice, and that's actually, I didn't realize that he was black until I saw a picture of him, because he sounded like my band director, who was this old Irish Scottish American fella.
Oh yeah.
And like has a very similar voice to Nat King Cole. And then like I was like, oh well, he was not looking like what
you'd expect
thought in my mind.
When I was a kid, I always thought like there was a connection in my head, like Nat King Cole, because of that Christmas album. It was like Nat King Cole and Santa Claus somehow were connected, but also King Wenceslas and
probably like was it Old King Cole?
Old King Cole, absolutely. Like all these things were mixed together in my head when I was a child. Yeah. So you thought Nat King Cole looked like your band director. I thought Nat King Cole looked like Santa Claus. So we all had funny ideas in our head.
Fair enough. Yeah. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, but talking about funny ideas, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last time or not, but when I was younger, like 2nd grade, so like 7 or 8, I remember I was talking with my dad before school one day, and we were talking about like America's history, and knowing that like we were under the British Crown, and then we fought the Revolution, and then we were independent and all that. And I had come to this idea that, like, because I guess I knew about Pangea like years ago, like millions and billions of years ago, and all the continents were together. And I had, I guess in my 7 or 8 year old mind, I had come across this idea that like Britain was out there just like literally just like grabbing America and like
Like the
Britain and America together.
landmass. Yeah, gotcha.
So
Yeah.
like I was kind of conflating like
Tectonic plates
prehistoric,
moving and stuff.
plate movement and colonial America. And then I made a comment about like, oh yeah, after the independence, we had to break away. And I was
Yeah,
picturing
Wow.
George Washington and John Adams just pushing away from England across the ocean,
like with punting sticks, just like pushing the whole
yeah, or
country.
just kind of these big like the poles that
Right,
the
yeah.
gondoliers use in
Yeah.
Venice. Needless to say, my father had a good laugh at that. He was like, no, we weren't actually physically connected.
Yeah. That's great though. I mean, it makes so much
So-
sense, but especially with the phrases that we use, and for a little kid, 10 years might as well be a billion years, so why not? It's all
Yeah.
old.
Yeah. And somewhat on a similar relation to that, we had mentioned this before. But with the way we say a certain vowel sounds on this coast,
Hmm.
like OR words tend to get like an AR sound.
Oh yeah.
So to me, Canada and Mexico weren't foreign nations because they were right next to us. How can they be foreign nations if they're not far away?
Foreign.
But that's when my mom was like, no, it's actually foreign. We just say it, we say it differently than other people. Like, okay.
Man, I never thought of that either though. It's one of those things. I love it when things about language are quirky, different, sometimes even go against the current accepted rules, but they make so much sense. And so from my perspective, the pronunciation of foreign as foreign is kind of quirky. It's like, oh, why would you do that? But then at the same time, it's like, that makes so much sense. That's a really sensible way to say it. It makes that connection makes a lot of sense. It's great. Hey friends, thanks again for tuning in. I'm real excited to have episodes rolling out again. Happy to be back at it. Thank you so much to Andrew O'Sullivan for joining me for this episode and putting in all the time, prepping the tunes and recording them and doing all the Wikipedia-ing that's necessary for this kind of thing. So many thanks, Andrew. And thanks for tuning in. I'm real excited. I'm feeling hopeful and optimistic that I'll be able to keep up the every other week pace for a bit. And I think Jeremy over at Way Too Twag's Bagpipe and History podcast is gonna continue coordinating with me. So as much as we can, we'll kind of leapfrog each other. So every week there'll be one or the other coming out. And I don't know. Maybe we shoot for. Maybe this becomes there'll be an annual cycle to it going forward. To make it so that I don't fall apart. Or maybe we go for another 100 episodes and call that a season, end it with an album again. Maybe that could be fun. That was a lot of fun to put together. I don't know. What kind of... I'm kind of in a feeling it out position right now, but I appreciate all the really nice messages that I got from really kind people saying that they enjoyed the show and they were excited to hear it come back, and I'm excited for it to be coming back too myself. Life is a little bit more manageable right now, but it was necessary to kind of get a little bit of breathing room there. So thanks for being patient. And thanks to everybody who's ever supported the show with nice messages, with listening it, with sharing it around, and also financially. It's no small thing, and I really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me. I mean, I'm talking to you right now on a much nicer microphone than I started with. I'm using software that is way quicker and better than what I started with. I hope that that quality has improved and that's it. If it has at all, and I think it has, that is definitely a direct result of the financial support that some people have given to the show. So thank you all very much. And I try to always be really clear to folks who kind of hop into the Patreon and bounce back out again. I'm so thankful to you. So I hope that I made that clear to anybody who's come into the Patreon to support. $3 here, $5 there. I don't want you to feel like you have to keep giving forever. Any amount is really kind, and you're my friend forever. So thank you again. And some folks stuck around even while I wasn't putting out episodes. I mean, wowie. Thank you so much. And Jim, I'm not forgetting you. Patreon isn't the only way to support the show. So thank you also, Jim, so very much. I'm a little overwhelmed all of a sudden just thinking about how nice you wonderful each one of these wonderful individuals is. So thank you very much. So, aside from feeling excited about sharing this episode with you, this what turned out to be unexpectedly the Christmas donkey episode. I had not realized how much the noble donkey figures into Christmas stories before we did this. I'm excited to be bringing prizes back. We got the dope. What was the acronym? Dope prizes, right? So it was like droning on. What was it? Droning on. I can't remember now. It's a dope giveaway. It was like droning on prize extravaganza, or did we do a Calvin and Hobbes thing where it's like one of the letters of the acronym is from the ending of one of the words in the acronym or something? I can't remember now. Anyway, what I'm getting at is we're going to give away a copy of the Timothy Cummings Christmas collection that he called On This Day, The Earth Shall Ring, that he came out with in 2017. I was leaning on this collection heavily for the tunes that I submitted for this episode. I don't remember if Andrew mentioned whether or not he did it himself, but it's a really cool collection. Over 100 tunes in there, and they're all really cool. Some of them are like really recognizable classics, but my favorite thing about it is how many of them are tunes that were unknown to me, like these really like dark modal French tunes and some really groovy Welsh tunes and stuff that I wouldn't have come across if it weren't for this collection. And it's really beautifully done. Lovely printing job. So anyway, I'm going to give a copy of that away. So I've got my Cthulhu Dice Tower here. And so the pool of people who are like on the list for this prize here are the Patreon supporters plus Jim. And so I've got 14 people here right now. I've got a D20. And so anything above a 14, I'll just do a re-roll. So let's see who wins this prize here. Number 9. So number 9 is going to be Bradley Kenna. So Bradley, I'll reach out to you, and I'll thank you directly in the message as well as here on the air for supporting the show, and we'll coordinate getting you a copy of Timothy's book. Unless you already have it, in which case maybe we can coordinate another one of Timothy's books for you instead. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I don't know if I was always rusty at these show interruption things, but I feel extra rusty at it. I am just in the way of the show. Let me get out of the way. Wish you all a happy holiday or happy multiple holidays, however many holidays you're about to be celebrating or have already started celebrating. I hope it goes well. You stay safe, get to see some friends and family, and eat a lot of unhealthy food. Thank you again, and until the next episode. Well, now, Andrew, before we get too far away from Christmas songs about animals, I do have one other, and this one is also about a donkey. I'll admit to you, the main reason I wanted to record this one and have it as part of our discussion is because there's this refrain in this song, in the lyrics, that is just, "Hail, Sir Ass, hail." And I just think that's hilarious, and I just wanted a chance to say that over and over again. And you might know better than I do. I was trying to learn about where this song comes from. I've got it down as Orientis Partibus, which I think is Latin, which I think is...
Sounds it, yeah.
Orientis makes me think the East, and Partibus makes me think nothing. Ripped apart, I have no idea, right? I have no idea what's going on. And of course, there's no way to find out. There's no such thing as like a Google Latin to English translator or anything like that now, is there? I say as I'm trying to highlight it, copy and paste really quick so I can see Latin to English. Let's see here. Eastern parts, that's what it says. So,
Eastern parts.
like Eastern lands maybe kind of thing.
Which makes sense, yeah.
But it seemed to me like, I was trying to figure out, because it seems like this is a song that comes into a liturgical calendar here, right? And that at some point this song was being sung at something called the Feast of Circumcision. But I couldn't tell if it was then later sung at another feast called the Feast of Fools, or simultaneously at both, or if the Feast of Fools is the name of a feast that replaced the Feast of Circumcision. But we're talking like 1100s, 1200s here, like a long time ago. And then at some point there was also a Feast of the Ass, where this was like a shoo-in, like you got to sing this song for that feast, obviously, which seems to have happened like mid-January at some point hundreds of years ago, I guess.
So the Feast of the Circumcision, which is still celebrated in the church, but under a different name, it's now the Solemnity of Mary. So it's actually celebrated New Year's Day, and within the old Jewish, or I guess in the current Jewish tradition, but within the Jewish tradition, Um, Male children would get circumcised, with the bris.
Mhm.
Traditionally 8 days after they were born.
Oh, I see. I already
So
that makes sense. So you'd have like a
with
party 8 days after Christmas kind of thing?
Yeah, so with Christmas being on the 25th, 8 days after is the 1st of January.
I see.
So this would be where the circumcision traditionally would have happened. I'm glad they only wait 8 days and not like 8 years, because that'd be not pleasant.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't exactly know what the Solemnity of Mary celebrates.
Mm.
We have quite a few Marian holidays, feast days in the church,
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody's
and
gonna hold it against you not knowing exactly what
I
each one is about. No sweat there, man.
don't know exactly what the Solemnity celebrates, because it's like relatively new, because it was
Mhm.
always like the feast of the the feast of the circumcision, or to go by like a somewhat different name, but it was just I don't know exactly what this one celebrates, but like Monday, well, tomorrow actually, but since it's on Sunday, it gets moved to Monday, is like the Immaculate Conception, and that's like one of the most commonly misunderstood holidays.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks it's when like Jesus was conceived,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's actually it's when Mary was conceived without sin.
Yeah, I didn't understand
So
that until like a year or two ago. Like it was really recent that I found out the Immaculate
yeah,
Conception was about Mary's conception, not Jesus's. That was that. Yeah.
yeah. So then if you take 9 months from tomorrow, that puts us to September 8th, which is the Feast of Marymas, or like the Nativity of Mary.
Mm.
Um, so which then, for all the people that say like, oh, Jesus wasn't born in December, well, hold your horses. Um, because there's one, if you link it with John the Baptist's birth, he was born in June, and was then, according to scripture, was 3 months along when the visitation, or when the nativity happened.
Mm.
So it would have been 3 months prior to, well, 3 months at December, and then another 6 months for 9 months would put us at June. But also there's an idea in the Jewish faith that like great men were like conceived and died on the same day.
Oh really?
And so with historical records of Passover, we can kind of pinpoint that the crucifixion was actually on like the 25th of March, based on the Jewish calendar, when we kind of know with the reign of Caesar and all that. So the 25th of March is also what we would celebrate as the Feast of the Annunciation, which was when when Gabriel announces to Mary that you'll have a child and all that. So,
Hmm.
you fast forward 9 months from March to, then you're up to December. So it all kind of links in. But yeah, I remember in high school, I was, I had felt the same thing. Like, if the Immaculate Conception happened in December, like,
That was
and
quick.
then, yeah, that was quick. Like, but it was like,
It ain't adding up.
yeah. And because I asked that in my religion class in my freshman year of high school, I was like, why don't wouldn't, Christ have to go through like a full gestation period? And he's like, well, it wasn't Christ's conception. It was Mary's conception.
Hmm.
But yeah, so back to your tune about the Hail Sir Ass.
Yeah.
That's where we went with
Yeah.
with this one, kind of
Hey.
wandering around like a
We'll
like a
get
donkey.
there. Wandering around like a donkey. Perfect. Well, what I gathered too when I was reading around about it was that this has also been a popular song at like Christmas pageants, which makes sense with the manger scene, animals there. I would assume that's why it's like, whoa, we got a donkey here. Let's sing that one donkey song, Um, and so yeah, there's that repeated refrain at the end of each verse. And it seems like the way to sing this often would have been like a soloist or the professional choir up at the front of the salon or room, wherever you are, would sing the verse, and then the whole crowd would join in for that last refrain. So I love that even more. It's like like have like an amazing tenor, or like one of those kids who sings really high, singing like, here's the words, and then everybody joins in, "Hail Sir Ass, oh hail." I just love that so much. Um, but in some versions, the lyrics do seem like they're about a donkey that would have carried Mary in the nativity story, like to the manger kind of thing. In other versions, it seems like it's maybe about a donkey that carried one or some of the magi or wise men from the east to the manger scene. And so maybe that's the Orientis Partibus, the eastern part's title there, maybe is giving us an idea there. But there was another variant that came up that suggests that it's a donkey that carried Mary and Joseph and Jesus to Egypt to hide for a while. So it's a donkey of some kind. And maybe it was one super donkey that did all of this. I don't know. That's a possibility as well. But
this reminds me of the, are you familiar with the tune or the song Dominic the Donkey?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so
but I'll look
this is where America being so large has its downfalls. It's a an Italian American song, I guess would be the best way to put it. That Monty wrote, and it's pretty popular in the New York, New Jersey area around Christmas time. And it's about Dominic the Italian Christmas donkey. And it's it's great.
I think I've heard this song. I have a brother-in-law who spent some time in Italy, and I heard him singing the Christmas donkey song once. I bet it was this song. But go ahead, tell me about it.
Yeah, and so he pulls he pulls, instead of pulling the reindeer pulling the sleigh, it's the donkey pulling the sleigh, and it's just like a fun song.
Yeah,
and so we're all talking about these donkeys, and it's thinking of that one.
Donkeys are such a thing for Christmas all of a sudden. Yeah. I didn't realize it's been there all along.
There's two great Irish songs. There's Delaney's Donkey, which is about this like lame donkey that they enter into a horse race, and then it ends up winning. And it's just like a real fun song. And then there's another tune that you've heard of the band Gaelic Storm.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Oh, I know the song.
So they did Darcy's Donkey. Which is somewhat based off of a true story.
Is it really? That's a fun true story.
That one, like they were making the moonshine or the poaching, and then the authorities come around, so they dump the moonshine into the donkey's feed bag
trough or whatever, yeah.
And the donkey gets
real
drinks
drunk.
all the moonshine and gets all fired up, and then he ends up running in a horse race, wins, but then dies at the end because he's like just fired up on alcohol.
Yeah.
And then they took a mount of the donkey and put it up in the bar or in the pub, but it wasn't like the donkey's head; it was Darcy's ass. So just kind of like a fun play on words there with that.
Right.
And so apparently that bar, which I think has since closed down, but James's bar, Ballantrae, Donegal, had a donkey's rear end on the wall. So that's where the story was kind of inspired from.
Yeah, gotcha. So it might have been that the story happened and that's how it got there. It might have been that somebody was sitting there one day looking at that and thinking, I bet that here's a story that could go behind that. But either way, great song.
Either way, there was a donkey's behind mounted on the pub, on the wall of the pub.
That part we know for sure. Well, this one about this super donkey or these donkeys, whatever the situation may be, I did find a group called Conspiratio on Bandcamp that did conveniently for us a version of this where they sing it a verse in Latin and then they sing a verse in English. So we could play some of that right now to get kind of a feel for it.
Orientis partibus appentavit asinus pulcheret fortissimus sarcinis aptissimus Heseras hes. From the east the donkey came, stout and strong as 20 men, ears like wings and eyes like flame, striding into Bethlehem. Heseras hes. Amen dicas ausine, iam saturne gromine, amen, amen itera, aspernare vetera, Heseras hes. Wrap him now in cloth of gold. All rejoice who see him pass. Mirth inhabit young and old on this feast day of the ass. Hey, Serasnes, hey.
And then here's another translation of the lyrics that I came across that it's maybe a bit long. Maybe I won't read all of it, but just in case it's any fun, like it opens by talking about this awesome donkey. It says, "In eastern lands, the ass arrived, pretty and strong, fit for burden. Hail, Sir Ass, hail." And then it kind of talks through like places that this donkey goes through. And it does mention about halfway through, it talks about how this donkey is special. And it says, "In his leaps, he conquers the mules, the fallow deer, and the roebucks, and surpasses the fast camels of the meads. Hail, Sir Ass, hail." And that makes me think like, whoa, we might be talking like an immortal or time-traveling donkey here. Darcy's ass might actually be like, this one would have won a horse race. You know what I mean? So
Without the moonshine.
Without the moonshine. Doesn't even need it. Yeah. Then there is a part that it came. Oh, here's a part. This set of lyrics talks about bringing gold from Arabia, incense from Saba, and that makes it seem like, oh, this might be the idea that this donkey carried the magi or the wise men. But then it does talk about him pulling heavy loads, eating barley, and then there's this part that it talks about how the donkey is good at separating the wheat from the chaff. But then here's one part. I don't know about this, Andrew, but I'm curious about this. The very last verse in this version translates to, "You say amen, ass, all filled with grass. Amen, amen, once again, spurning the past. Hail, Sir Ass, hail." And it makes me wonder, I wonder if in some language or with the right accent in some language, if the word for amen maybe doesn't come out kind of like sounding like the braying of a donkey, right? Like, amen, amen, something like that. And maybe you could fit that into this last verse. I wonder if that's what the intention was with this last verse. You say amen, ass. Like, oh, do donkeys sound like they're saying amen, maybe? All filled with grass. And then it has the amen, amen. Like, I'm imagining if the crowd or the singer was doing that and purposefully trying to make it sound like a donkey's braying, that could fit nicely. That could be kind of cool. And silly. But
we can go with it.
Yeah, let's
I
go
like
with
your
it.
theory.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
I don't know if there's any. I'm trying to think. Like, is this tune like English originally?
No, I mean everything that I found about it, it looks like it looks like Latin, and then I found lots of versions of it in Italian and French and Spanish and English, and so it could be that like that set of lyrics comes from a specific language that isn't Latin or English. I'm not sure. So
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of like maybe like before the Great Vowel Shift or something. That might have been.
Yeah.
Like, because we would say like, amen is one of those words where it's like, neither or neither. You could say
Right.
amen or amen, depending on.
And I feel
how
like I
you
could
say it.
imagine amen even more like fitting into that kind of the sound a donkey makes kind of thing. Because I mean, the words you use for what animals make it's a funny thing, right? Like I have limited experience, but I know that in Mexican Spanish, chicks don't say cheep, they say pio, and dogs don't say bark, they say wow. It's like there are these things that like I'm like, amen. I feel like I could imagine that being a possibility, but yeah. who knows?
I guess we don't really have our dogs don't really bark either. I mean, they bark, but they don't say bark.
They don't say bark,
woof.
right? Yeah.
They
They
woof,
woof.
where they say bow or
Or they bow wow, right? Yeah, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Well, when I recorded this one, I actually thought that the melody looked like it would work as a round, and I think it worked okay. I did it with small pipes and penny whistle, yeah, I think I wonder if it maybe was set up to be a round or if it's just convenient that it works that way. But yeah, it definitely works as a round. So now, Andrew, how do we get this to our next tune? We've had the convenience of barnyard animals, but I'm looking at your other tunes. I think we're out of animal tunes now. We might just have to.
Well,
cut
I
to-
guess since we were talking about how things were pronounced,
yeah.
they do kind of pronounce things differently in the Shetland Islands.
Mm.
So maybe that would be a good.
Yeah, let's do that.
Go to Christmas Day in the morning.
Oh man, I haven't put that together. I was just talking to Owen, and he was telling me he has a few tracks on his Oh When Now album that are like the Shetland tunes, and he was talking to me about like, yeah, it's a very Shetland thing to say, like up at the house.
Yeah, so I don't really know much about this tune,
Mm.
but it's a Shetland tune, and so Christmas Day in the morning, or in the morning,
Mm.
in the Shetlandic dialect of Scots. And from what I read on the session, which we'll take that with a grain of salt, this seems pretty accurate. It was a tune that goes back to the 19th century, attributed to a Shetland fiddler by the name of Fredman Stickler, who used to play this tune to the laird every Christmas. So it's a fiddle tune originally, but it does fit on the pipes. And they say that it's a jig, but the way I've heard it played, it definitely has more of like a Strathspey feel to it.
Oh yeah, your recording definitely felt Strathspey-ish to me.
And like the other two tunes, those were jigs. This, I mean, they say it's a jig, but it doesn't feel like a jig. And there's a cool bit in the second part where there's like, they have it notated, I guess it would be a quadruplet instead of a triplet. So it's 4 notes to fit in one beat, much like a triplet would. But if you see the notation, it's got the little bracket, and then instead of a 3 underneath, it has a 4 underneath it.
Interesting. I've never had to play one of those before.
So yeah, it's a fun tune. And again, I heard this one on that Scottish Christmas album, and they played it on dulcimer and violin, or dulcimer and fiddle, or something like that. I don't think I've ever actually heard it on the pipes besides myself playing it. And so this can be
it might be a first
an instrument debut, you know. It's just a fun tune, and I heard a fiddler playing it. The guy's name's Kevin Henderson. He's I don't really know much about the Shetland style, but there's obviously a lot of Scottish influences on it. There's a lot of Nordic influences because Shetland was very much a Nordic place. We actually spoke a language there called Norn, which was a form of it was a Nordic language up until the 18th century. There was still speakers. So
wow, there's way more recent than I would have guessed.
Yeah. So it was spoken there in the Shetlands or in the Orkney Islands, and a little bit on the mainland, like Caithness, kind of like the part of Scotland that kind of sticks up. Into the northeast, like the really north, like not like when people say the northeast, they think like Aberdeenshire, but like we're talking like
emphasis on the north.
Yeah, the way top part. So it was a Nordic language that was spoken. So there's definitely a lot of like Scandinavian influences on the Shetlandic and Orkney culture. Vikings are a big thing up there, all that stuff. So I don't really know too much about the Shetland fiddle style, but it's kind of fun to explore, find some tunes. So we have this group. It's called the Jersey Shore Piping Society.
Yeah.
We meet about every 3 months, about 4 times a year. And so we kind of do it at the quarter months. So end of March, end of June, kind of September, and then December. So all the 3 months, right? 3, 6, 9, 12.
Mm.
And last year I played this with a few tunes, and I kind of did a tour around the world Christmas set. So I had like the Shetlands, I had the Hebrides, I had New Jersey, I had the one that I played, Mir and Nullig. So that was like Irish and New Jersey at the same time, and a couple others. So I've played it a few times, but it's not one that I've heard on pipes played, besides myself. But it's a fun tune. It's got like a fun bounce to it that I don't know if you would use it for dancing. You might. It's definitely a fun listening tune. But you would probably appreciate this. It definitely kind of has like a country dance or like Regency dance kind of feel to it.
I can imagine taking steps to that. Yeah,
kind of fun bounce. So that's that tune. Not much else to say about that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
besides,
to me
Shetland tunes are fun.
Yeah, I don't know much about that idiom either, but I did get the impression from talking with Owen about Shetland tunes on the fiddle that like at least something that's kind of idiomatic about that is kind of drony, like doing something. I forget what he called it. It's like drop D tuning for your guitar when you drop some of the strings down lower.
Oh yeah.
And that seemed to be a common, at least common-ish aspect of Shetland tunes, if I'm understanding correctly. And that makes me, anytime I hear something getting more drony, I think, oh, well, that's more bagpipey and therefore good. But maybe that's part of why there's some sort of like maybe that some Shetland tunes lend themselves easily to piping because maybe there's something there. But
I would imagine there has to be a connection between the bagpipe and the fiddle. Yeah, there has to be some sort of. Obviously, there is a connection, but I mean, in the Shetlands,
there's specifically
in Shetland and Orkney themselves, I would imagine there has to be some sort of influence on each other.
Yeah, but probably going to be at least a decent number of shared tunes or something, right? Just considering where it is, right?
Yeah, and I was doing like a little bit of reading on the Shetland style, like a lot of like Arstra spays would then get like played into reels up there. So I think definitely a lot of shared tunes, but maybe expressed differently, which is always kind of fun to hear. And take Mrs. McLeod's reel, for instance, right? That great little 2-part reel, or well, in some cases there's more than 2 parts. But that was the Isle of Skye reel, and it just went everywhere. And it's it's played in Ireland, it's played in different parts of Scotland, it's played in Cape Breton, it's played in the American South, it's played in Ontario, and they all have it. It's played the pipe band scene. They all have a different feel to it, and it's. I love seeing tunes evolve. As
to what flavors they
as
pick
they
up.
as they kind of migrate, both through time and space.
Yeah,
exactly. What flavors they pick up in different areas.
I'm with you there, absolutely. You know that song, The House of the Rising Sun?
Yes.
Who was it who did that on? Was it on the Ed Sullivan Show? Was it the Animals did that on the Ed Sullivan Show? And that's how I can tie this in. We've been talking about Christmas animals, and so now I can talk about the rock band The Animals. Well, I don't know. I thought it was really fun when I first encountered like this idea that I just thought it was fun when I as a teenager being obsessed with that song and learning about like, oh, I had thought of it as like this very American song because of the mentioning of New Orleans and stuff like that, right? But then maybe the most famous version of it is The Animals, and then finding out, oh, well, The Animals were a British band, but that performance where the famous performance where they played it was here in America, so it was like, but then like, who was it? I think Leadbelly maybe had done it. The old blues guitarist Leadbelly had done it, and then it was like, well, where did Leadbelly get it? I think Leadbelly said that he picked it up from Ireland, maybe. And I was like, wait a second, like, how is this back and forth trading off of this tune across a really long period of time? It's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Oh, look, like, and now, like, there's like a big like country music phenomenon in Ireland.
Oh, is there? I didn't know
And
that.
so not only like are they liking, like American country music, but there's like homegrown country music.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's, just like it's Irish artists and original songs and stuff. And it's cool seeing this kind of full circle thing
Yeah.
because, American country music definitely has its roots or roots in
At least some
in
roots.
Ireland and
Yeah.
Scotland. Whether with the settlers coming from Scotland to Ireland and from Ireland to like, the Appalachian area,
Appalachian, all, yeah.
and then it went back to Ireland from America, and actually Halloween did the same thing.
Yeah.
So like the Samhain traditions in Ireland and Scotland came to North America with immigration, and now the Americanized Halloween
It's going back.
traditions have gone back to Ireland and Scotland. So
I
it's,
wonder
it's
what
fun
they'll-
to see.
What will they look like when they come back to us again? Just keep going
Yeah,
back and forth.
it's fun. It's fun to see this kind of, and I think especially with music, this kind of trade, between both sides of the pond. And,
Yeah.
I think we're at a point now where like it's almost that idea is almost kind of not necessarily dying out, but I feel like it's rare because we're so much more, everybody's so much more connected.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
it's
all
easy
connected all the
it's easy to
time.
get, it's easy to get like, I'm talking to you in Utah right now.
Yeah,
Or, like, so like for you to have like a tune, like you could hear a tune, shoot it over to me and I can have it the next day and it's not
Yeah.
going to travel across, the country and evolve and
Right.
Yeah.
It won't pick anything up
So-
in Oklahoma on its way over.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of, I don't think it's necessarily like that idea is like dying out, but I think we're going to see less of it or maybe like less evolutions of it, especially as we have more recording technologies. The oral tradition isn't as strong because we don't have to rely on it as much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have to ask my teacher what their teacher told them Seamus Ennis played a tune like.
Yeah.
I could just listen to Seamus Ennis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes to that whole like idea that you and Andrew Douglas were talking about, like, are you playing the music or are you just imitating somebody playing the music?
Yeah.
And now we've gone from wildlife podcast to Piper's Dojo.
Welcome back to the Piper's Dojo podcast.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I have
Piper's Dojo's knockoff.
as we're heading toward the last couple tunes. Maybe that's the way I tie this one in. I've got one. Speaking of getting tunes from different places, I think this one comes from Germany, or at least a country or a few places within the borders of what I would in modern times think of as Germany. Something like that. It's a Germany-esque area tune, I think. And I'll even try saying the title in German. So treiben wir den Winter aus. It's something like, this is how we chase winter out, or this is how we drive out the winter.
Okay.
And as I was looking around at like where this tune comes from, I think maybe it's more accurate to say this is like a winter song or like an end of winter song, though it definitely gets used for Christmassy stuff and here and there throughout at least the last couple centuries. Like it pops up. And there are some versions of it that have way stronger sort of religious themes and some that don't. It seems like, and I'm for sure other people will know better than me because I was translating a lot of German websites into English to try to figure this out, but it seems like basically what we're talking about here is toward the end of winter, like chasing the winter away so that as spring comes. And like aspects of this seem to include like maybe building effigies of what we might call Old Man Winter and like running it out on a rail, right? Like maybe we build, and what's really fun is a lot of times these seem to be snowmen. So you build a snowman and that is the winter. And when this takes on different feelings throughout the centuries, it seems like sometimes that actually represents death. Sometimes it represents sin. Sometimes it represents what the people singing this song might have thought of as heretical teachings within a church, or paganism versus Christianity, things like that. But you have this effigy. Maybe it's made of snow. Maybe it's made of straw, something, right? and you either run it out of town and like throw it over a cliff, or throw it into the lake, or you burn it, or you blow it up, or you flog it, like these different things. Or sometimes you put it in the town square and burn it for everybody to gather around and see. And this is a song that might have been sung at such times. So it seems kind of like end of winter, beginning of spring is the time to do this. And there are a lot of really fun YouTube videos of people singing a version of this song, just like in their backyards, mostly in German. So it seems like it's kind of a living thing even now. I just didn't know about it. Believe it or not, I'm ignorant of some things. And so it's like as a way of...
If you put it in... you put in the context of the Frosty the Snowman movie, that makes the movie a lot darker.
Oh man,
chasing
I had not
Frosty,
I had not thought of that. I wonder if there's some kind of influence there in the story, chasing the snowman away. Huh. That's fun. That's interesting. Well, I found one version of the lyrics is something like this. It would be, this is how we drive out winter through our city out the gate and chase him to shame away from our lands. We will throw him from the mountains to the valleys, so that he would fall to his death. We will chase him over the heathen, that he must suffer death. I wonder if that's a bad translation. I wonder if it's something more like Heather, but anyway. We're chasing winter away. We bring summer here, summer and May, the little flowers of many kinds. And I found one group on YouTube called Bergfolk that I'll pull a little bit of their version of it in here because I really like the instrumentation, but they also are singing some of the lyrics in German, so it could be fun to hear them a little bit.
Treiben wir den Winter aus, durch unsere Stadt zum Tor hinaus, den Reichen in den Kasten, heut ist Mitterfasten. Wir stürzen ihn von Berg zu Tal, damit er sich zu Tode fall. Wir treiben ihn über die Heide, das tun wir den Schäfern zu Leide. Nun haben wir den Winter ausgetrieben, so bringen wir den Sommer wieder, den Sommer und den Maien, die Blümlein mancherleien.
So for the most part, this seems like a lighthearted, excited, kind of looking forward to spring kind of thing. But I did come across a few versions that were kind of darker in their lyrics. And for me personally, when I was trying to record this, I just kind of naturally gravitated toward a more dirge kind of feel, which I think could be appropriate to the spectacle that seems to go with this song sometimes, in some ways maybe. So a less lighthearted take, like this version of the lyrics I found here come from, there was a German publishing house had a website that I translated to English online to try to learn about this a bit, and they talked about how this was a version that was being sung in parts of Germany in like the 16th century. And this version, the lyrics are something like this. They go, "This is how we drive out winter through our city out the gate with his deceit and tricks, the right-wing Antichrist. We will overthrow him from the mountains to the valleys so that he falls to his death and shan't deceive us any more by his late moves." Not sure what late moves might mean if that was translated back into German, but must be like a phrase that makes sense. And now death has cleared the field as far and wide as summer dreams. He dreams in the Mayen from some flowers. The flower sprouts from the divine world and points to a much nicer place. Who is it that taught this? It's God who made it happen. And there I'm like, Man, I feel a little bit scared all of a sudden. Like, were they singing this while they killed somebody? You know, like the personification feels almost like it could go all the way to a person possibly in some of these versions. But anyway, with that kind of like darker feel, I think behind it, this is how I recorded it. So I recorded this one using that extended range chanter that I've been experimenting with. The extended range notes that it got used here were just a high B, and then I used the back thumb hole for a C natural, and then the drones I used are just some 3D printed Highland bagpipe drones.
Listening to that one, from what I heard, because I listened to all these tracks a couple of days ago, just to kind of get an idea of them. And I don't know if it was where your mic was or whatnot, but your drone sounded like there was a lot of drone going on, and I didn't know if you were doing I didn't know if you were doing like one of those like deep drones, you know, like the contrabass thing going on.
Oh, it's cool that I had that effect. No, I wasn't, but I was experimenting with mic placement, and that one I had a mic on an arm mounted to the wall, so it's like right up against the ceiling, pointing straight down at the drones. So it definitely was capturing the drones in a way that I was barely starting to experiment with it, so I'm not sure what else could be done to refine that, but that's interesting that it came across that way.
And I think it worked out well with that kind of that more darker, minor-y sound, you know, and dirgy sound.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like if not like I got nothing against dark music, I seem to be drawn to it actually. But if it's fun to end on something that's not, you know, possibly about throwing people over cliffs or something like that, you know, what's that last tune that you've got for us, Andrew? I don't want to try pronouncing it.
The last one is an Italian one called Tuscendi or Tuscendi dalla Stella. So from the starry skies descending, and it is a Italian Christmas carol that was written by Saint Alphonsus Liguori, who was the bishop in the 1700s in Italy, in Marinella, Naples, and he was kind of like I heard somebody describe him yesterday as the Leonardo or the Ben Franklin of his time.
Oh, I see.
Where he was doing everything. Like, right, he was a lawyer, he was a hymnist, he was, you know, just doing everything. And he originally wrote this tune to a different set of lyrics, which I don't have off the top of my head. Oh, yeah. So his best known musical work is his Christmas hymn, Qua non nascetti Nino, which is this tune, but then I guess it was written in Neapolitan. So Italy is kind of strange with their languages.
Yes, I've heard that.
So like Italian, right? Is really just like the Florentine regional language that then became standard Italian. So within the peninsula of Italy and the surrounding islands, there were, you know, Latin was obviously spoken at one point, and then vulgar Latin branches.
Which is Latin with lots of swear words, right?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, there probably were swear words, but yeah, it's not like just like common language, I guess, is what vulgar means. So they all kind of separated on their own from Latin. So there's this idea of like, oh, like he speaks dialect, and it's like, well, it's not really a dialect of Italian because it didn't come from like what we would call standard Italian. It came from the Latin Vulgate and evolved. So like you have like Neapolitan and, Calabrese, Sicilian in the south, which is different than like Florentine and Tuscan and whatnot in the north. And so Florentine was kind of chosen because that's what Dante wrote in. And that kind of became the standard after Italian unification in the 1870s. So St. Alphonsus wrote this hymn originally in Neapolitan with I don't know if it was a separate set of lyrics or if it was just like in the Neapolitan language, but then
in my head this whole time, Andrew, I've been trying really hard to come up with a joke that I probably shouldn't even try to make about how like every tune in Neapolitan has to have 3 sets of lyrics. The chocolate, the vanilla, and the strawberry.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah,
but I'm a monster, so go ahead, carry on. Sorry.
Fair enough. But then Pope Pius IX when was Pius IX around? Oh, in the late 19th century. He translated this tune or this hymn into like standard Italian. So Tu scendi nello stemma, and it's just it's normally sung Christmas Eve, and it is also traditionally played on the zampogna, which is the southern Italian bagpipe. So that was a very much like a pastoral instrument, the shepherds would play. And they have another instrument that they play. It's called a ciaramella, which is basically like an Italian bombard. It's, very oboe-like. And so they'll play like the zampogna and the ciaramella kind of together, and a little bit like a call and response, very similar to Breton music where they have like the bagpipe, whether it's the highland pipe or the biniou, and the bombard kind of doing this call and response. And the tradition was, or the legend is, well, there's one legend that on Christmas night itself, when Christ was born, the shepherds were out in the fields and they were playing the pipes, and the music of the bagpipe actually was soothing the labor pains that Mary was having.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. I like that.
So I'm a fan of that one, and which I saw that in a book. It was actually a book about like Italian Christmas traditions, and I was like, well, I guess that means we have to play bagpipes at Christmas.
Yeah, bagpipes are a Christmas instrument now.
And I remember having posted this on Facebook, and my uncle, the priest who chimed in, was like, I've been to Israel and the Holy Land many times, and I've never seen bagpipes in or around Bethlehem. And I was like, hold on, and I did a quick YouTube search because I had seen this before. So in the Israel/Palestine area, especially in the Christian Arab tradition, there's which you'll appreciate this, there is a big tradition of the scouting program. And there's with their scouting program, there's a big tradition of piping. Oh, so
that's part of scouting?
Yeah.
Why wasn't that part of come on, BSA? I could have.
I don't know.
I could have been bagpiping that much more when I was getting my eagle, dagnabbit.
Yeah. Though I do know a fair amount of bagpipers that are Eagle Scouts. So it's, you being one of them, myself being one of them, and a few others. But so they'll have like scout troop pipe bands.
Wow.
And I don't know if you remember last summer or 2 summers ago, Rab was talking to that fella, Eddie Batish, I think his name is, from the Sons of Holy Land.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
So they're from Nazareth. They're from Nazareth proper. And they're all former scouts. and they all
Oh,
played
I hadn't
like
realized that.
in the scouting pipe bands. But there's these like great, like they would do these parades, like these like Christmas Eve parades,
Mm.
and there'd be these scout pipe bands like parading through Bethlehem, playing highland pipes and drums and stuff, and here they are playing like "O Come Only Faithful" and kind of the more like classic,
very recognizable
recognizable carols and hymns, and I'm like, well, there we are, bagpipes played in Bethlehem, and my uncle was very impressed that I was quick on the trigger with that.
You're ready to go,
I was ready to go, and so in Italy, the tradition was, especially in the South, was that the shepherds would come down, so they would play the zamponia, and somebody that plays the zamponia is the zampagnaro, and then the plural for that is zampagnari. So the zampagnari would come down from the hills, playing this tune on Christmas Eve, and like kind of go like right into the church.
Oh, that's fun.
So
you hear him from the distance, like I'm imagining your priest is doing the talking spiel kind of thing, and then you hear the sound from off in the distance. It gets louder and louder and louder.
The Monsignor, the priest at our parish, Monsignor Sam, he is Italian or Italian American. He was born here. His parents were born here, but his grandfather was born in Italy, I think. And I think it was his grandfather. It was either his grandfather or his uncle was a zampagnaro and played the zamponia. So he has a kind of a fond connection with this tune. And so last year at midnight mass, at the end of midnight mass, I played this outside on the highland pipes.
Oh, fun!
As everybody was leaving, so it was really neat. And I am reading right now that sometimes this tune is referred to as the Carol of the Bagpipers.
Okay. I've heard that title float around. Yeah.
Canzone dei Zampagnari. So it's just a really nice tune. And
actually, now that you mention it, I might be inventing this in my mind, but I think maybe in that collection that Timothy Cummings put together, he might even have an old picture of a Zamponia player. Maybe even in my mind, I'm feeling like it's actually the piper and the guy with the bombard like thing.
Probably, yeah. They tend to go together.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really, really nice tune, and it's very Italian. Yeah, it's like the first verse is like "Tu scendi dalle stelle, o re del cielo, e viene una grata al freddo e gelo."
Yeah.
Oh, Bambino, like then there's like Bambino, mi divino, and it's like it just kind of hits the heart of the right spot.
Yeah, that I definitely I mean that immediately feels like I'm like, oh yeah, Arrivederci Rome and stuff like even kind of like some of the kitschy stuff, like I can hear it connecting there. Yeah. Yep. Very Italian. That makes sense.
So I played that one on the C small pipes.
And they sound so sweet, by the way. Who made those again? Because they sound lovely.
Mike McNinch.
That's Mike McNinch.
He actually made both those, the C set and the A set. It's fun having a bagpipe that the maker, like you're friends with the maker.
I'm sure.
And especially that that A set that I'm playing was one of the first sets that he made. So it's cool to have that being played now. But so I played this on the C set, and it's notated in A. So I have all three drones going. I have the bass, tenor, and the baritone. Because I was trying to get as close to a Zamponia sound as I could, and the C small pipes did it. And so it's just it's a really, really nice tune, and I would like to see more Americans playing it and more Highland pipers playing it, because it fits all on the Scottish scale. So it's like we can do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's much of a call for Italian Christmas music outside of like New York and New Jersey.
Well, you know what?
and the
There might
Northeast.
be there might be a call for any bagpipe tune that can magically soothe labor pains. That might be the angle.
Yeah,
the way that we get that. Let's get pipers playing this tune outside of maternity wards across the country and see if we can help ease some of that suffering, huh?
Well, you have 5 kids. Did
Yeah,
you play
we've
pipes
we've
when any of them were born?
believe it or not, that was not on the menu that day. No, not in any case. No. I would have been
I
happy
guess
to, but it wasn't asked for, so I didn't bring it up.
I guess you'll have to try for number 6. And
I
give it a
guess
go.
so. Now I've got a reason to have more kids. Got to experiment here.
Tell your wife it's for science, right?
This is for science.
For science.
Yep, we may never know, but it can be up to someone else to find out.
Well, I mean, you're in a perfect position,
Mhm.
being amongst a population that is known for their
For
big
birth rate,
families.
yeah, that's there's
You
always
can-
somebody.
I'm sure if it's not number 6 for you, it could be 1, 2, or 3 for your neighbor or something.
Yeah,
You
1,
can-
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 for my neighbor. That's right.
We'll see a thing in Utah hospitals.
Yeah, this rise in bagpipe playing and this one specific
Bagpipe
Italian tune as well. We'll just make it standard, part of the birthing package. Like, oh, you want the room with the bouncy ball and the tub and the bagpiper? You bet. Oh, perfect. Well, I think we'll just slide in